All right, so we're going to start again. So welcome everyone to our Global Heart Resonance Call. We come here and we gather at this beautiful watering hole every Monday as an opportunity to dive deeper into the intelligence of the field herself. So we always begin this call with a resonance, an opportunity for all of us to feel into this collective consciousness together, to feel that sense of wholeness and oneness. And I'm Shelley Darling, and I want to welcome you. And this morning I feel really blessed to have Michelle Pohlad here. She's part of our Resonance Council for Good of the Whole. And she's going to open our call, and then I'm going to share just 5 guidelines that we use for this call. And then I'll share our resonant reflection, this theme that will all come into this participatory experience together. So we invite you to just, if you're on the phone, to just relax. You can always go on the Zoom app and scroll left, and you can see everyone if you like that. We invite that on this call. As well, if you're on computer, up on the right hand top of your screen it says gallery view or speaker view, and the speaker view will allow you to see that person more directly in a fuller picture. So with that, Michelle, we invite you to bring us into this place of the resonant heart.
Good morning, everyone. And it's a great honor to be able to do this and pull us together into this field of resonance that we all have shown up for here today. And so in doing that, I just ask that everyone take this time and this moment to really clear our minds from all the noise that we've brought with us from our day-to-day activities and things that are weighing on us and wondering where we should be off to next and what we should be doing. And to kind of just take a moment to just say, I'm going to let that be for now. And then also to just connect with our hearts and to really open them up to this experience as well, because that's how we join together in the field of unification of love, is when we can get our minds calm, our hearts open, and really connect those two in this space, and then bring it together with all those who have shown up today. So in that, if we can just feel that clearing that happens in our mind and just a state of calmness that can flow through it. And then in the heart, when we have that clearing in our mind, we can feel our heart more directly opening and being present in a fullness that we get to feel more deeply when we come together in places like this. To just really feel that, to begin pumping more and opening more, or whatever physical manifestation it plays for you. And then just to take that and really intentionally connect it to each person who's shown up here today. In this physical form here, I use the term loosely, form here, in being able to see them or see their numbers or their faces or their photos, and to intentionally connect to that heart of love that has shown up. And then all the others who have the intention of being in here, but maybe their life doesn't allow for it to be, and to connect to those, because they too are part of the field just for their intention. And as we are all connected, to come together here now and to be present, fully present, for the conversation that's going to emerge from this oneness that we've created. So we will all have a deeper understanding and a deeper knowing and a deeper awareness of what the field is really asking us to do collectively and in our individual lives. And with that, I think we're ready to start the call.
Thank you, Michelle. Welcome everyone. It's just such a beautiful experience to just slow down and drop in deeper into our hearts. And just tracking what Michelle was just sharing about, really listening to what the field is asking us to do. And that's not language you would hear necessarily out on the streets. But here we're understanding, as a conscious collective, we're understanding that this collective consciousness has a voice. And it's always infusing us with that pathway to our highest potential. So this morning, welcome to everyone, and just a little bit about Good of the Whole. So we're coming here hosted by Good of the Whole, and Good of the Whole is a community of planetary stewards who are gathering and contributing to, in service to, the greater whole. And what we understand here is that by coming together, that as individuals serving the greater whole, the whole gives back and serves us. And that's the experience that Michelle was speaking to. So you can connect with us more on Facebook, the Good of the Whole community, and there's lots of opportunities to participate in this ethos, cultivating an ethos of wholeness. You can go to the website as well, Good of the Whole. So with that, we're going to step into our topic, and then I'll share just a few guidelines before we keep on going. And for those of you that are on the phone, just invite you to put yourself on mute. And if you're having trouble, I can do that from there as well. So today, our resonant reflection is called Kanyini. And I'm going to be I'm not going to be speaking the Aboriginal names because they're really hard to say, as we discovered. But it's the concept, it's the principle that we're going to be deepening in together with. And so I'm just going to read a little phrase that came from this movie, Kanyini, which was a documentary of Uncle Bob Randall. He's one of the Indigenous elders. He passed away over a couple of years ago. And he was a beautiful voice speaking out for evolution and consciousness and how to really do things together. So this morning, in a country where Indigenous people have lived for at least 40,000 years, there is a word that means interconnectedness, caring, support, nurturing, and responsibility. When the European Australians came to Australia, they broke the 4 Kanyini Principles that were an integral part of the Aboriginal life. Those principles were broke when European law was imposed upon them, when they were forced to move away from their homelands, and broken when the children were removed from their family as a part of the Stolen Generations. And their spirituality, their innate natural spirituality, was replaced with, at that time, Christianity. So today, understanding these 4 principles are about unconditional love with the responsibility of all creation. They understood that 2 energy lines exist through the universe, the energetic consciousness or intelligence of all life. 2 snakes going in opposite directions as they connect and become energized and help each other up to the next level. The sense of belonging to home and land, family connecting with life, love of spirit and soul, and their belief about creation and the right way to live was embodied. They were living the embodiment of this experience. So today, we have the opportunity to really breathe into these principles and really focusing on this innate joy and wholeness that we come in with. And this restoration, or I feel like you can actually say resurrection, of this consciousness of our collective wholeness. This sense here in this circle of what we call here in the good of the whole, the home frequency. So this morning we're going to invite you to tap into that home frequency. And the simple guidelines that we invite on this particular circle, there are lots of beautiful circles. Here we're focused on the emerging field. So we're holding the energies and the intention of resonance as we access this collective field of intelligence. So we invite you to really hold this consciousness of deep listening. And where this is a restorative practice where we're learning to follow the thread of the conversation. So it's moving in present time, and we're listening from that present time, and we're speaking from our essence, from that essential self. As we're collectively, you'll begin to feel that we're building a field of coherence together. And this field informs us. So sometimes a tendency is to focus on one person, especially when we're here on a computer and we're looking at everybody as this beautiful quilt. Beautiful. But here we're inviting you to move from the personal to full presence. Stay in that present time. Listen for what's moving. You can speak 1 to 2 minutes, and you can speak more than once. But as there's a lot of people here, we like to invite that movement. So as you're feeling that calling, we put in a crystal and talking stick in the center, and feel free to bring your voice, share your voice, trust the field that you are enough. When you're done, just acknowledge. You can say, I'm complete, whatever works for you. And then the most beautiful thing that we found here is the pause. That here, to meet your own uncomfortability with silence, and that in that pause is where we receive the information. We're being informed by the field. So to allow that. As well, the people that are on the phone that might want to speak, it takes them a little bit longer to get to unmute and speak forth. And with that, we invite you to share your name when you're speaking so that people on the phone can hear and feel into the space. And so I'm complete. So again, Kanyini, these 4 principles, the sense of wholeness, sacred relationship to ourselves, each other, and sacred connection to the land and spirit. So with that, we open the call, and I'm complete. And don't forget to unmute yourself.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, whichever it is. This is Joey, and I gratefully pick up the crystal and walking stick. Can you all hear me? Okay, because I just had something flash across the screen and I don't know what it was. As I have been studying my own Indigenous roots as an Anishinaabe Ojibwe Indian, I have learned that every Indigenous culture on the earth was given what some call the Great Binding Law by our Creator. So every Indigenous culture, from the moment of their inception or our inception here on earth, was instructed how to be at one with all our relations. And as have enjoyed learning from some of the different Native cultures, their phrase for being in love and in one-ment, I have been astounded, really, to see and appreciate how many cultures celebrate that oneness that we are. And I'm really delighted, Shelley, to have a new word to add to my list. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak from that place of our wholeness in relationship with all. And I'm complete.
So I just like to share two things that really resonate with me here. Well, I appreciate what was just shared, but the two things that stand out for me is the sacred connection and the thread that was just shared, really that instruction of the indigenous, of the connectedness with all of life at the prior to, and that we are tapping into as if at the beginning, right here, right now, as if the beginning of our lives with that sacred connection, as each time we return to that and when we create the resonant field, we are tapping into that sacred connection, that initial teaching. And the second part I'd like is also to share is the distinction between the word that I also prefer, the word being response-able. Sometimes the word responsibility brings up something that is kind of, I have some resistance to. And so being in the moment, we are responding, we are becoming response-able to what is present, to the sacredness of each moment that we return to, when we return to the oasis, when we return to that sacred space. So I feel complete. And one last piece, I forgot to say my name. This is Henry, but also it's like each time we do this, we are rekindling that light, rekindling that connection every time we return to this sacred space, the sacred heart space. Thank you.
This is Shelley, and what's coming to me is this sense of we. This is what's highlighting. I can see that the word we is for some reason highlighting. And even when they were describing Kanyini and these two snakes intertwining to one uplifting the other, so the upliftment. And I feel that, and I just have to chuckle because we did have a call before this, and someone was sharing a dear, Nancy Chaconis was sharing about the snake that showed up in her life, and it was just incredible, 4 or 5 feet long. And the last photograph was the picture of the snake with its head looking at her door. She was at her door, and somehow it just put its head and laid it on the little rock and was looking up at her. And I just feel like that's kind of what's happening here, is this sense of we, this upliftment of each other, this greater consciousness of compassion and sacred connection, that this beauty of recognizing our wholeness. And when I think of the snake, as a totem, I always think of that, the snake shedding its skin, and that willingness that when we come together like this, that willingness to together, really serving that greater whole and being willing to let go, not have to be in that consciousness of, oh, what's right, and is what I'm saying right or wrong. It's just being in that presence of what is. So I'm really happy to be here with you, and I'm complete. Thank you.
This is Joey again. What I was seeing while both Henry and Shelley were talking and playing back what was coming through me before, was the sense that I believe everybody on earth has this sense of togetherness inside. We're born with it innately. And the Indigenous First Peoples were given the instructions. And I'm trying to figure out which way to go with this. When I grew up in a very small town, white Anglo-Saxon society. My dad kept calling himself the Soul Indian, but it was a little town where there was just great prejudice about everything. I always felt something was really wrong, and I didn't know what it was. but there was something so wrong about what people were saying and how they were holding each other and what they were saying about each other and so on. My dad was one of those who was kidnapped and taken to the mission schools where they beat out of him his entire culture, all the ways of being an Indigenous first person. So he remembered a little bit about the old ways, but very little. And he didn't even remember which tribe we belonged to. It was that bad. But while it was not popular in the 40s and 50s to claim yourself as an Indian or as a Native American or as a Indigenous first person, it was really a taboo. Along came the 60s, and that groundswell came up with the hippie movement. And I just keep believing that as we're talking about the wholeness and the oneness and the we-ness, we all have that inherent knowing inside of us. And that's all I need to say about that. Thank you very much. I'm complete.
This is Julie, and it's always fun to see how Shelley and I mirror each other, because our paths are so in sync and yet totally different expressions of the same thing often. And this weekend I was at the Shift in the Heartland teaching and had a couple different opportunities to teach sessions. And it's beautiful. And the topic was immersion. And so I used it was kind of fun. It was like trying to just listen to what wanted to come through. And I handed out these dry sponges to everybody in the circle and gave them a dry sponge. And what is it? It's just a dry sponge. And then I had a tub of water, and I put my sponge in the water and showed them how the sponge becomes the water and the water becomes the sponge. And literally there's no separation with the sponge and the water. When the sponge is in the water, there's no separation. The sponge is the water is the sponge. And yet we could see ourselves as these individual sponges within this body of water, and use that to teach this unified field of consciousness and how we as individuals see ourselves as separate, but really we're all connected. And that's what connects us. It's in all things. It's not just in consciousness. It's just not in humans that we think have brains, and we think that consciousness is something that psychology talks about. And it's so much more. This consciousness is in the trees, in the water, in the earth, in the animals, in all things. And so the thing that was really beautiful that I just want to put an exclamation on, since Henry brought up response able, was talking about our responsibility as that sponge. And I just literally was teaching, when you're in separation consciousness as this dry sponge, this is how you usually see life. This is the filter. This is how things go. This is what you experience. And when you come in and you immerse yourself into the waters, into the unified field of consciousness, then you are connected. And so we did some exercises about what it's like when you're really connected in kind of like this field of coherence that we've created. And I gave them the invitation when they left to really pay attention this week to all of their interactions, all of their relationships. And when they're noticing the discordance, to ask, am I a dry sponge? Do I need to re-immerse myself? Am I not a part of the unitive consciousness? And so, again, I'm just bringing that in because it was so big when Shelley sent out this beautiful invitation for our call today, and right on the cusp of me teaching the very same thing of that responsibility to be in relationship with all things at all times, and what that really looks like when we walk in unity of consciousness. So anyway, thank you for that, and I'm complete.
Let's see. This is Shalania. Good morning. I'm very grateful to be here. And responsibility kind of stuck out to me as well in the email with the 4 principles. Well, how do we do that? Because that's an exploration that I'm on at this time. How do we really be responsible to people that have really forgotten that who they are, that beautiful love and light within themselves. And so, I have to remind myself then often, and in my, in my father's lineage, there's a song, and it's either called Crying for Peace, or sometimes it's called the Peace Song. And so I was asking a woman about it who's really grew up in the culture and was really trained. And I said, "What? Can you tell me more about this meaning of the song?" She said, "Well, it's a very old song, and we really only know one word of that song in our language, because it's in the Sleghi language, Cherokee language." And so she said, it means reciprocity. And it's more or less like a beautiful song that goes out, and we each have a part in that song. So when I think of singing, and so it's very helpful to me, because when I think of singing, I think of joy and beauty and peace. And so when people get together and sing, it's not like the word responsibility, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, I should do this, I'm not good if I don't do it. But when you think of singing, it's like, for me, it feels like it's something that I want to do. I want to do that. I want to be able to be part of that song, to be bringing that resonant. I'm getting language mixed up from different, different teachings, but that resonance, that heart resonance, and that coherence. And so that I think kind of lessens the somewhat of a, you should be responsible aspect of it. And so when I see that teaching, I say, oh, that's like reciprocity. We want to be together. We want to be connected. We want to be connected to all of life, all of the land, not just human beings. And we want to be able to, for those who forget, not to feel like we have to fix them or something, but rather perhaps by just allowing ourselves to be in that beautiful song of life, that they will feel, they will be able to, maybe something will resonate within their heart, and then they will be curious and they will start to explore. So I'm very grateful to be here. I was just this morning, when I looked at the email, I thought, oh, that is a wonderful thing I need to do today. I have a busy day, and I'm going to take some moments to be in the field with all these wonderful people. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being well.
This is Henry again. So what was just shared just a couple thoughts or connections with that. Not even fully clear on what I'm going to say, but we're both the water and the sponge. It's also kind of that St. Francis quote that it is in giving that we receive. So equally, it is in receiving that we give. And partly the receiving is also connected to the responding. So partly if we are receiving in the moment what is happening, what is present, the challenges, the beauty or whatnot, then we are in a better place to respond. And it's not the responsibility in the word that Shalanya expressed. She also included, the word responsibility sometimes implies a should. And so it's just kind of being able to receive it is wonderful as well. So I feel complete.
I'm just going to unmute people that are on their phones just in case you're trying to unmute yourself. Following the thread of responsibility, this is Shelley. It's really interesting for me right now. I'm at a time where there's just recently, really the past 10 days, been a turning point in my life where my mom was trying to heal infection, and then all the drugs made her weak and weaker, and then she fell. And my relationship to my own life of this, what I want to do, what the universe is asking me to do, and meeting those inner shoulds, and it's a really interesting place. And then having family members, brothers who are so oblivious, and it's almost like I can't do anything else. I'm in this world of responsibility because I can be present here. I know how to be present. You've gifted, all of you here, you've gifted me that gift. I experience it every time I come on one of these calls. It's just a deepening into that. I love that oasis, and so really softening, and I feel like this journey of a deeper understanding of the collective field, this unified field, is softening, and just be gentle on yourself. Be gentle on how you're receiving the information, where it's really catchy. It's like a catch-22 because we're seeing all of our friends and they're out there doing this and they're doing that. But my particular situation, or maybe some of you can resonate with this, is that my situation calls for something different. And how can I be responsible to that energy that's speaking to me? I feel like this is the challenge in the journey and the joy in the journey. So I think it's really interesting, this love of all creation in that response to our collective, our collective relations, all relations as was being spoken, the animals, the birds, and my parents and my brothers. It's a lot as a human being. So with that, I just put that talking stick back in the center. Feel free to grab it.
This is Deborah. I'm kind of in the midst of a downtown Tucson situation, but I just wanted to put my toe in the pool and speak to these times in the sense of the letting go that we're being called to do in order to truly follow our own path and be in resonance with ourselves, and also let go into the oneness of all that is in every situation in which we find ourselves. And thank you once again. I'm very grateful to be here and to be part of this resonant field with you all. I really deeply appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, this is Bob Challenger speaking, and I am in southwestern Ontario, Canada. And I have recently, in the last 6 weeks, moved into an apartment on my own, which I have termed the Oasis as well. I'm by myself, and if anybody is up in this area and they want a place to stay, I've been able to host them. I'm about an hour and a half from Niagara Falls and the same distance from Toronto. So with that, I am complete, except I want to say what a joy to be on this call and listen to such integrity in the voices of the people speaking. So I am really complete this time. Thank you.
The word responsibility just seems to keep coming. And what's coming up for me is how often I have a sense of responsibility for something, that it's because I am responsible. I love that. I've heard it before, and today for some reason it's actually registering in my brain. I don't know what's taking me so long, but that I am responsible. But that's not the same as it is my responsibility. And trying to discern between when I'm doing things out of a sense of obligation versus from my place of lovingness, and how I really need to sit with a few things on my plate right now and discern, maybe I have to do my work to get to the place, maybe it's still my responsibility, but maybe I to get to a place where I can do it from a loving place versus the obligation, and the difference that it will make in those particular situations. I've done it before, and I fully recognize the value in that, but with all the things coming right now, it feels like I have lost my, or I've, I failed to pause and take those moments to really go, if I'm doing it from obligation, and no matter how much work I do, I'm still doing an obligation, I'm not spreading love, and if that's what for me, I know that's my purpose here. How do I get to that place in that situation? And I know some of them are just because part of it is having the difficult conversations that I have zero desire to have. And there's a piece of me that recognizes, though, that's how we work through those, or evolve through those, or go into that deeper knowing. I loved earlier someone said, how we've forgotten some of the ancestry, and we haven't carried those things through. And I know from experience and conversations I've had that many, many people can't even relate to what that means at all. So in the current existence and conversations that I have to come from a place of having an awareness of that hibernation of my inner knowing from whatever previous lives or current life or whatever all that means, which I can come from very many different aspects that, of teachings. But the reality is that the majority of us don't know it now. We don't have the awareness or the knowing of it. I just read a book where it, like, a whole nother thing that landed on my plate, and I'm like going, wow, another one of things I didn't know. I just did not know. Not because I didn't want to know, but it just wasn't part of my human life that I've lived thus far. And yet it's so part of human existence that occurred not that long ago, even from me. And to begin to get that awareness and that understanding, it made me realize that when I go, I mean, honestly, can't people know this? Like, how can people not know this? And I get really irritated, and I'm like going, could you read a history book? And then I go, well, maybe not that history book, So it's kind of a little bit of a minefield out there for us now. And for me, I feel like the piece that comes from this field of heart resonance is, how do we have compassion and understanding in meeting people wherever they are? Not in my arrogance of going, oh my God, I cannot believe you can't know this. Like, are you sleeping under a rock? Do you ever read anything? Okay, I don't have that many of those moments anymore, but I do have them occasionally. And then that's my full-on humanness. I'm being very vulnerable. But in those moments to be able to have this, and really it is my saving grace these days, and the other person I'm with saving grace, is that resonant field of this that I come back to and go, if they did know that, they couldn't behave that way. It couldn't be being in that, or their knowingness goes away in that moment, right? Just like mine does sometimes. Sometimes I just start fighting for whatever's mine, whyever I do that. I can hardly believe I still try to fight for something, because it seems so primitive to me, like from my heart in this field. I just can't imagine it. And yet I have my days where I go out there fighting for something. And so in that, I guess it's just that whole responsibility piece comes into that too. I'm responsible. What is my responsibility? And when I'm in that sense of obligation, how do I process through that to determine where that love place is that I want to really, that I know I'm meant to emerge from that place. I don't know if that's where, I believe that's where we all want to evolve to. I know that we're not all there. And I don't know, maybe for some people, their responsibility, their response-able is to come from my shadow side and show for me what I need to do in order to develop my own lovingness. And I have to say, I'm happy I get to do it from the lovingness side instead of the more shadow side. Although that was, I just hear like, wow, that's arrogant, Michelle, because you know what? You actually are the shadow for some people. Woohoo! Anyway, with that little moment of self-realization, I'm going to pause and let someone else speak.
I would, this is Henry again, just quickly like to respond. I got a real helpful piece of information during a challenging time with my parents' health issues, and also another family member. Kind of challenging times. And it was from someone who does healing with crystals and other. And one thing that he said is to to not do things because you have to do them, but rather to do because you want to. So to make that distinction, if that makes sense to those, that there are certain things that I felt like I had to do, which is more of the should and the responsibility, and to do the things in response or in the situations because I want to. So to always have that line of connection. So I feel complete. I hope that was clear.
Something's coming to me. This is Shelley, and it's a little bit of I'll do this story as quickly. So the other night, it was my brother's birthday, and my other brother decided that he wanted to take people to Billy Joel, like this huge concert, and had called me up, and I said, no, I can't be, it was months before, and I was just not that into Billy Joel, and I really could care less about going to something like that. So, but as it ended up, the universe and I love this, this where there's laughter, because we can get this in the joy. And so the universe in its humor ends up, my parents can't go, and there's all these extra tickets, and guess I get told I'm going. And at first I felt that resistance, that like, and then it was my brother's birthday and I should go. And I feel like the missing thread in the, at least for me at that moment, and even was that at one point when I really realized, okay, I have the opportunity to shift my consciousness, because that's what it's all about, right? Shift my consciousness. And I went, I am going to just open to the bounty of this experience. I have no idea, because that's the other way in, I feel like. It's like, I have no idea what's possible here, or why the universe, conspired to create this happening. And it was, just to make things really short and simple, it was really the perfect opportunity to be with both brothers who I never had the opportunity with. And it was that deep surrendering to the joy, not a surrendering to like, oh my God, I have to do this. But it was a surrendering because we can, it's like we have to build up enough experience. I have a feeling that's also what this call is about. It's like building up enough experience where there isn't much of a shift from that quick, resisted, responsible place, just something larger, just understanding there's something greater moving here that even I can't imagine. And it was a hilarious night, even to the point where I realized when I got there, the realization I didn't want to go was because I had mixed up Elton John and Billy Joel. Completely. I get there and I was going like, wait a minute, he's in this black suit and it's boring, and what's he doing? He always comes in costumes, and that was enough. My brother like just about rolled down 200 feet because we were at the very top of where we were sitting, and he just like laughed hilariously. But you know what? That was the thing that broke the tension and the misunderstandings that have happened for a lifetime with my brother. That's all that it took. And we were like best buds the whole trip home, So with that, I just offer that to the field and offer that to myself. Like, can I just remember that to, when I hit the edge, just to take that breath and remember there's something so much more moving that I can open to receive in a way that I can't even imagine. So that's my little story. And I pass the talking stick.
I love that story, Shelley. Thank you so much. I'm having a lot of those similar kinds of experiences. I can't remember what it was called, but the first week in January, we did a week of silence. Is that right? I think that's what.
It was 7 days of rest. Yeah.
Okay. So what I did during that time was I was not interested in anything that was going on that was planned for having a focus or whatever. I really took that time to watch how much I wanted to go outside myself, to do something, to be in a certain place. All of that. And how I felt about it. Did I feel good about wanting to do those things, or did I want to have interaction with people or on Facebook? And I found I didn't want to have any interaction at all. I just wanted to be silent. And that has continued to this past week, where I have pulled in until today, actually. I pulled back so much that I consciously looked at all my shoulds and all of my have-tos and all of my expectations. I mean, that just keeps going on and on and on, this expectation thing that's showing me how I create conflict in myself by having an expectation, and it doesn't work out the way I want it to. And yet, Shelley, you did the flip side, and that's okay too. For me, it's where I am being flowed. And the right answer for me is flowing with the love and trusting that no matter what my mind wants to tell me, when I flow with the love, it's awesome. When I go to the not love, it never works. And by love, I mean I feel an opening, a fulfilling. The not love is a contraction. It closes me down. So I just love these examples we're all giving. It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you all so much. Namaste. And I'm complete. If I can find my mic.
So invite everyone to move into a pause here, and I want to just invite anyone who hasn't shared to bring their voice forward, even if it's just to say hi and your name, to presence yourself if you'd like. We'll just take a moment, and if you're on a phone, just to unmute. Just maybe it's just a word you'd like to drop into the circle.
Hi, everyone. This is June. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I've been on a very noisy hour drive, so I wasn't able to talk before, but I have absolutely loved today. And again, as you said before, bringing forward these kinds of experiences and letting us all sit in the middle of that bubbling richness is just fabulous. So thank you, everyone. I love you. I'm complete.
Yes. All right. So just taking all this in and allowing that bubble of love. So it's all about the love. It's all about showing up, being part of this loving co-creation. So if you love this experience in the Oasis, obviously we're here every Monday, same time. And we invite you to come back. And we also invite you to share this experience. If you're really loving this, people don't know what this experience is. And so this is a great opportunity for them to come in. And so please share it. I know that the emails have been going out somewhat late the night before. I'm trying to work on that. But keep your eye out and join us. Go to Good of the Whole and really learn about the different offerings. We have the once a month Thursday Revolutionary Hour, and Dr. Julie Krull, who's with us, has some amazing women's forums, and the last one will be on, I believe it's on Valentine's night. So with that, and just go to thewhole.com. It's really simple. So we invite everyone on this call at the very end to take themselves off of mute, and we do this delicious choir of yum. So this mantra of yum, just sending out this frequency to everyone, to your families, to your communities, and out to the planet, to the mother. Yum.
Yum. Yum. Yum.
Namaste. Thank you, everyone.
Namaste.
Love.
Namaste.